Hey guys, welcome to the CO visit. Colin here, and always my trusty coffee. I really appreciate you guys joining me here and clicking on this video. Welcome. And just remember, you can always like and subscribe. There's the super thanks, and you become a member as well. Let's get right into the discussion. So, getting back to uh, the video I was going to make yesterday before I kind of went off on a tangent about whether or not religions, and since we're specifically talking about Jehovah's Witnesses, should they be run like a corporation? The kind of inspiration I got from this video was just the other day. I was watching in the morning as I was getting ready for work. I was watching a congressional hearing, and there was a researcher that they get hired, and they were basically declaring before Congress about the company Meta, right? The Jeff Bezos company that runs Facebook and WhatsApp and all of that, and so they were basically talking about how these Meta hires teams of researchers and scientists and others to do different surveys and do different studies, and this particular one was about the basically work environment at the company and the effect and the health of employees. And so they had done this research, and they had done interviews and surveys, and they had found out that the work environment there was quite toxic, and it was having physical health problems, consequences, and emotional and mental uh, health problems it was causing to workers, and particularly women. And so basically what caught my attention was, because Meta's, as with Facebook and all of that, this is a big corporation and run like a corporation, of course. And what caught my attention was the fact that every time they would do this research, and then they would make reports, and then they would give the reports to the upper management, and then upper management, if they saw anything that was concerning or questionable, they would say, go talk to legal, go talk to legal, go to the legal department. And I'm going, whoa, wait a minute. Where have I heard that before? that sounds oddly familiar. Go to the legal department. Well, the first place that I remember seeing that from directly was the Shepherd the Flock of God manual that's given to the elders in relation to specifically child abuse. Contact the legal department. And then you saw this, many times on in the practice as well, that of course elders are supposed to consult anything first of all before going outside to the legal department. And that's what these other corporations do too. Huge multi-billion-dollar corporations like Meta. Any information that could be compromising, that could cost them money, or that could damage their brand in any way, even if it's the right thing to do, needs to go through the legal department first. And then the legal department tells them, instructs them, eliminate this, don't talk about that, don't publish this, don't. And so I started looking at that and thinking, okay, so that led me to the question, should religions be run like that? And the fact is they are. Jehovah's Witnesses already are run that way because it is a corporation. But in reality, when we look at religions and what they profess supposedly, because they profess a higher power and a moral ground, right, coming from God and God's commandments, just like the witnesses always said, you obey men's laws until they come into conflict with God's laws. Then you have to obey God, right? Well, that doesn't always happen. And so I started looking up things like in reference to, for example, child abuse, because the Watchtower in its publications, and specifically in the Elders Manual, says that when they're talking about child abuse, they're not considering teenagers and stuff like that. It's like that's not no. And then I looked at that and I thought, why is that? I thought, why don't they consider that? So I started looking at laws. So I thought, why are they specifically saying like a certain age, like 16, or that's not, we're not considering rape or child abuse at that age. And I went online, and you can do this as well. You can go online, you can Google this and look up age of consent per state in the United States. Age of consent. And you'll find that in most states, there is an age of consent, which is called by authority, which means basically a person who's, usually it's around 16 years old, can give consent to a relationship with an older person, of course, a intimate relationship, or get married, as long as that person does not have some position of authority over them, like a teacher or something like that, a boss, somewhere where there would be a imbalance of power in that relationship where the young person could be unduly influenced, right? So I look at that and I go, okay, well, like I said in the community post, are we just doing the bare minimum like these corporations do? Are we just doing the bare minimum and eking under the radar because it's legal? Or are we doing what's just? Because just because something is legal doesn't mean it's necessarily just. It doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. Most corporations and most religions, who are also corporations, are limiting themselves to just doing what's legal, nothing more. But they don't go that extra mile as they claim they should, because if you look at the fact of, let's say, in the Jehovah's Witness religion, they're not going to deal with things like, if this person is 16 or 17 years old. Okay, just because the legal precedent says, they're 16, they can consent. When in all reality, if you look at that, those of us who are adults, and especially those of us who are parents, okay, and you look at that really from a realistic point of view, even though the law says that, should a person in that position who's 16 years old be consenting to a sexual relationship or getting married? Those of us who are parents especially really know, right? Or if those of you all here maybe are teachers, you've worked with young ones in your lifetime, do you really think that a 16-year-old is ready to take on those responsibilities? Are they actually ready for, all that's implicated with a sexual relationship with an adult, with a man or a woman? Well, you have to answer that question. I know what my answer is as a father. And the funny thing is, though, is the conflicts that you look at with the different laws, which are so contradictory and just backwards, because it all depends on the law that you look at. For example, okay, I'll talk to you about specifically my state, Minnesota. Okay, so Minnesota is one of the states that allows consent at 16. And yet that same person, that same young one who can make such a life-altering decision as to enter into an intimate relationship with an adult or even get married and have children, they can consent and they can make this life-altering decision to bring a new life into this world. And yet, if you look at the labor laws will not permit a 16-year-old to work full-time because they're a minor. and they need to be going to school and all this other stuff. So, okay, so you look at that law and you go, all right, so this 16-year-old can make the decision to have a sexual relationship with an adult. They can have a baby. They can bring a new life into this world, which is the most heavy, the most important decision you can ever make in your life, because that's a life you're creating that you're going to have to raise, that you're going to have to educate and be responsible for years to come. And yet you can't work a full-time job because you're a minor. And then you look at other laws like drinking, for example. Okay, some states can't drink until you're 18. Other states, you can't drink until you're 21. You can't go down to the store and buy a beer or a bottle of wine because your brain's not developed yet, because you're not old enough to make those kind of decisions. But at 16, you can consent to have sex and get married. So you see what I mean, guys? What's legal is not always just. And those human laws don't always make sense. But you would think that by, someone who, like a religion or religious leaders that claim to be following this higher power, would know that a person of that age is not ready to do any of those things. Have a full-time job, drink alcohol, and much less be in a sexual relationship or have children. But that's what they do. And the Watchtower organization, or the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, whichever legal entity you want to look at, they are only following men's laws. And they're doing the bare minimum that they have to do. In some states where they're mandated to report CSA, they do. In states where they don't have to report it, they don't. You see what I'm talking about? When the right thing to do, maybe not the legal thing necessarily, but the just thing to do would always to be reported. But they won't. If they don't have to, I'm not going to report it. And so that's the issue which I have with those things, guys. You might have different thoughts. I don't know. Tell me down in the comment section. That's your area to debate. Let me know what you think about this issue. And I appreciate you guys watching this video. Stay tuned this week. I'm going to try to get a live stream going on Sunday coming up this weekend. And we're going to have a couple of guests come on and just talk about some current events, which you might know about. There's a white elephant in the room, and we need to talk about it. Everybody's talking about it right now, a very recent situation that happened. And there's lots of different points of views out there, and there's lots of debate going on. And so we need to talk about it and just let everybody vent and get your viewpoints out there, okay? And I'm not going to do this debate with a certain point of view. I'm not pushing a certain point of view. I'm just opening up my channel so that people can vent about it. Okay, so feel free to come on, join, and give your 2 cents on it, okay? But that'll be coming up very shortly what it is, okay? So stay tuned. Thanks for supporting the channel. Thank you for watching. Be blessed, and I'll see you in the next one.